Hello everyone, Jennifer Kumar here from Authentic Journeys, here in a 5-part series on polishing your email for business communication. We are on session 4, formatting in the email client. So I'm going to jump right over to the email that I'm trying to format. Now, if you've been following these tutorials, you will notice that this draft looks different even from session 3. I've added some text and other information in here, and I've done that for a particular purpose so that I could actually utilize some of the new text for showing you around the Gmail client and introducing you to all the features that can help you edit your emails and make them look a little bit more presentable or easier to read in a quick fashion to your colleagues, counterparts, or other business associates. So what we're actually going to be looking at is all these functionalities down here that you see on the bottom. So this video will be longer than 5 minutes. I know I promised you 5 minutes, and pretty much I lied every time, so I'm sorry about that, but I'm sure you'll find this very useful. So let's start on this line, and what you see here is the font face. Font face is how the font actually looks, the presentation of the font. So right now it's set on Verdana, and you can see how this looks. It's actually quite easy to read, and the font kerning, or how close the letters are to each other, it is easy to read. It's quick to read. You may think, well, is it really, and how do I know that? Well, let's compare it, okay, shall we? So let's highlight a section and take this these choices and pick a different choice. Let's try Georgia. Now we can compare against these two. Which one looks easier to read? Well, as I mentioned, the kerning, or how close the letters and spaces are to each other here, is quite comfortable for reading purposes. Here we can see it looks a little bit more congested, so the kerning is closer in this font just by default. We can't really change that in the Gmail client. So I would say Georgia font face may not work so well. It's maybe better than some others. Let's look at some others. Let's take this, fixed width. This looks like a typical typewriter font. It's somewhat easy to read and stuff, but it looks kind of old-fashioned because people don't really use typewriters anymore. So I wouldn't necessarily go for this one either. I personally don't prefer this one. What about narrow? Narrow, that's way too narrow. See how close and like skinny how the letters look? This will definitely be hard for people to read. We have to think of our audience when we're also writing to whoever we're writing to, who is reading it, how old are they, and we make some assumptions. Yes, maybe the older the person is, their eyesight is not so good, so this would not be so easy for someone to read. We don't want to use a font that they're going to have to go back and change, because nobody does it. Do you open an email, then cut and paste it into Word and change the font face? No, I don't think anyone would want to do that. It's too much trouble. So let's look at this one. I've seen a lot of people try to use Comic Sans, thinking it looks different, unique, inject some personality into your writing. Well, you know, still some people may find it hard to read. You can see when you compare, it can be a little challenging to read this font. But also it looks a little cartoonish or kiddish, this font, especially, at least my impression coming from the American business background, this font doesn't look professional, really, in my opinion. Now, there are some companies who may use it based on their company culture, but you know, most people I've seen that use this font for business purposes, I'm sure they're going into their email client and actually, you know, forcing the change into this font face, which I don't suggest you do. Hopefully your email client is already configured with, you know, either Verdana or Tahoma or a sans serif. And these three, I tend to say these three are pretty good ones. The sans serif, Tahoma, and Verdana. So sometimes when people think that the font is a little harder to read, they think I should make it bigger. So let's see. Yes, we made it bigger. It is a little easier to read this font now. Obviously, you don't want two different font faces in the same email, and you don't want the font to be bigger. The reason is because, when I have seen however Google has coded behind the scenes, normal font size tends to look pretty decent in most other email clients. But sometimes large and huge, huge obviously look way too big, but sometimes even large when it's opened in other people's email clients looks way too big, and then it feels, it doesn't feel nice to read such a big font. So I would actually stay away from changing the size. Just in using your Gmail client, stick to normal. And we're going to change this back to Verdana because that's the same that we had up here. Okay, so we went through the font face, we went through the size. Now, these three here, actually these four, bold, italic, underline, and text color, or highlight. Text color, highlight, or background color. These are used basically to highlight some things in an email. I would not use it for everything. So have you ever heard of the story of the boy who cried wolf? It's a boy who takes care of sheep, and obviously if a wolf comes, the sheep could be eaten, and so if he cries wolf, the villagers will actually come and try to save the sheep or kill the wolf, or one of the two. Well, he always used to cry wolf and say, wolf, wolf is coming, but there's no wolf. And then the day the wolf comes, if he says wolf, then nobody believes him, because all the other times he's been shouting that, help me, and now when he really needs help, nobody believes him. So the thing is, if you highlight everything and make everything important in an email, people won't actually think any of it is important. So let's see how we can actually highlight things in this text to make it stand out in a nice way without overdoing it. So let's take something and bold it. So I would say, if you have a list of something, that list title can be bolded. I prefer this. And you can have a colon there, or you can not have the colon there. Either way would be fine. Now italics, I actually avoid italics because I'll just show you what it looks like. It becomes a little harder to read that text with italics. So I tend not to use italics. I don't really like italics, but if you like italics, again, just maybe a few words, and like if we were gonna highlight the date, we could highlight the date and italicize that. But I wouldn't go overboard and do a lot of other things, because then, again, it will be like the boy who cried wolf. We want to avoid that. So I don't prefer italics. So if I was going to, I wanted the date to stick out, I might instead use underline. But since these hyperlinks are already underlined, I don't want to really do that. I would pick a background color like yellow. Okay? So some people also ask me what kind of font color or background color should I choose? Well, I would definitely stick with black as the default color for all of your text. Now, this is turned blue, obviously, because it's hyperlinked. Otherwise, it would be black. But let's actually just take a look at that. Excuse me. Got a cough there. Okay. So let's say I wanted to try changing the font color. I wanted to be different. I didn't like black, and I wanted to show personality, and I wanted to change it to purple. This doesn't look so good. This shade of purple is kind of hard on the eyes. What if it was a darker color purple, like this? See, I don't tend to think that doing this would actually really be nice. This is my personality. I wouldn't really go for this. I would actually say stay away from this. Even though this is quite readable, this color is readable and everything, I would actually stay away from it. So I tend to like to just go back to black. Now, if I didn't want to highlight this, and instead I wanted to change the font color, I would just change the font color and not highlight, because let's see, if I do both, now that it's still readable, but it depends on what color you change the font to, and it just takes extra time, and who wants to do all this? So I'm going to change it back to black, and I'm going to show you some different highlights in the back. So I tend to stick with yellow. Now another good one might be either green, that stands out quite nicely with the black text color, or like this light sky blue. That also kind of is quite nice. I feel that it's easy to read for most people. Now if we take a background color like, I don't know, something light like this, that also might be okay, but here I don't know if that contrast is going to be difficult for some people to read. Let's choose a different one like green. See, now it's getting darker. It doesn't really work out too well. So that's why I tend to stick to those lighter colors. So I'm going to go back to, obviously, you know, something like, I don't know, this purple definitely does not work at all. That's going to be too hard for someone to see. So I'm going to go back to yellow here. Now, the next, this one is for alignment. Alignment is, right now this is all left aligned. We can see that it's all left aligned. That's this first one, left aligned. Now, if I wanted to just show you the other ones, I don't suggest doing any of these. These are very rare situations we would do center justification or right justification. It doesn't look nice, so we typically just stay with the default of left justification. Now, numbered lists and bullet lists we had done the last time. That's how we captured this list here, which I always suggest to do if you're making a list. You just write the list without the numbers or anything, and then you highlight that list, and then you make it a numbered list or a bulleted list. Now, this is indenting. So right here, this section has been indented, which means it's moved in slightly from the rest of the message. And it's been indented because of using the numbered list. It automatically had done that from the formatting in the email. Now, like if I wanted to indent that less, it would actually take the numbers off of it and make it more just like a list like this. So it doesn't indent. There's no shorter indent than this indent, at least in Gmail, how it's configured right now. And then if I wanted to indent more, I could do that. So that's an option. You can take that or leave that, whichever you prefer. But the good thing about that is it would actually force the indent for you, which means that whoever's opening your email would actually see the same spacing in 90% of the cases. So it would actually be easier for them to, read it than if you force the spaces by pressing spacebar. So these two are really rare. I rarely ever use these. Now this is for quote. So a quote would mean that you highlight a section of text and you press quote, and see how it kind of indents it, but it's put like this line here. I actually never use this. So I don't know if you use it for any purpose. Definitely let us know. Put your comments in the comment section below. But I don't tend to use this. I'm going to use Command Z in MacBook to get rid of that. And this last one is remove formatting. So this would remove all formatting from whatever section that I highlight. So I have formatting for bolding, for indenting and list creation, and also this highlight. So let's see. It's all gone. It even took out some of the lines or changed some of the empty spaces. I'm going to press this again. This doesn't bring back the formatting. So Command Z twice. Since I'd pressed this twice, I have to press Command Z twice in MacBook, which undoes what I have done. Otherwise, you would have to force all the formatting back in yourself, little bit by little bit, like how we have done throughout this tutorial series. So that takes care of this line. Now you know what everything on this line is for. Now send starts with the last section here, this last line, send. Now there's nothing here in recipient, so if I press send, it shouldn't send, which is correct. And I always suggest not to put any email ID in there until and unless you actually are ready to send that email, because you don't want to be in the middle of formatting and writing and everything and send it by accident, or you have to get up from the desk for emergency, come back, and by accident it's sent to someone. No, you don't want that. So definitely draft, keep the subject line in there, and then put the email ID and then send it. We've went through this section, formatting options. Now this is for attached files. So if you want to attach files, you would press this, and then up pops your list of files from your computer. I'm not going to do this just because of I want my file list not to be shown on this tutorial. Same with Google Drive. If you have files from Google Drive, you can press this and attach them. Now, this is for attaching photos, so all these have similar things will happen if you press on this. If you press on this or you press on this, it will bring up files from your computer, and you can choose either files or photos. Now this is for adding a link. When I had done this before, I had done Control K. Even here you can see Control K because this is a MacBook. I can't remember if Windows is the same functionality keys. Otherwise, you would just press on this. First, before you do this, you have to choose your, choose your text that you want to have the link, and so that would also actually be displayed right here. And then you cut and paste your link in here. I'm not going to do that, so I'm just going to cancel that. And the last is adding emoticons or smiley faces, and here you can see hopefully some choices will pop up. I actually don't prefer to do this for business mails. I feel that it's not that professional, but if you want to add one smiley face here or there, or maybe something like that, maybe it might be fine. But I would really stay away from all these other weird smileys and stuff, because people in different cultures actually could interpret these faces in different manners, and also depending on the tone of your email, it could change the tone in a way that you don't want to change that tone. So I would actually stay away from it. Now, for instance, if you wanted to put something after "have a good weekend," like the smiley face I'm suggesting might be this simple smiley face. That's a very teethy grin. So I might actually, instead of that one, I might choose this one. That one looks good, or this one. This is simple smiley face. And they all have gone in anyway. So I'm not really familiar with that functionality because I rarely actually use this. So I'm going to get rid of those. But sometimes I put this. That is fine. Please avoid winking in business emails. Winking in some cultures can refer to, being untoward or flirting with somebody. So you don't want to give that impression. So, kind of just stay away from that. It's not really good. So maybe just this might be fine, but you don't want to overdo it. Just keep it simple and infrequent. So that's the emoticons. And now we have the trash can in case you wanted to discard your draft. We don't want to do that, so I'm not going to press that. And then if we press on this, we have more options. We can just default to full screen, which I think it is on full screen right now, so I'm not sure why that option is given to me. Otherwise, usually Google puts up the email on the side here, like in the corner. Label, I can label it. So the label list comes up. These are folders. Like if I wanted to put it into one of my folders in my inbox. And then plain text. Plain text, what happens? It takes out all the formatting. So I guess plain text, and so plain text also means that you don't have these options don't pop up immediately. Like plain text is the same as removing the formatting. So can I Control Z? Yep. And now I have my formatting back. Print would obviously allow you to print this email if you wanted to, and check spelling. Let's try out and see. So it would highlight in yellow all your spelling mistakes. I had highlighted this. That was my highlight, so that's not theirs. My name always gets highlighted. Let's say I misspelled this word session. Okay, so first of all, it might show some red underline for any mistakes. Do look for those. But let's actually check spelling again. And now you can see that this has actually been highlighted. So if I click on it, it will give me some choices for updating or editing this word to the correct spelling. So I'm going to click that. Now, the other thing, sometimes some people might forget and either put a space in between the last letter and the full stop, or maybe they put 2 full stops. Sometimes the Google client would put a red highlight under this like you saw before with that spelling mistake. But now it's not doing any such things like this now. So sometimes you have to go through and proofread and see and make sure everything looks fine. So I'm gonna remove these and then do that. So I'm gonna write in a subject line like tips for small talk. In the last tutorial, I'll go into more detail on subject lines and the importance of subject lines. So I'm going to type in an email ID here. So I'm going to type in that email ID. And I'm going to try to send this and see what happens. So here it popped up, URO is attached in your message, but there are no files attached, because right here it says the agenda for that session is attached. So the thing that happens that can confuse people is the OK is actually highlighted in blue. So sometimes our eyes just go to what is highlighted and actually we press OK. I would actually avoid pressing OK unless you reread and make sure, okay, yes, I really don't need to attach something. Because sometimes we might actually have a message that says something like there was an agenda for this meeting. If you would like to have a copy of that agenda, I can attach it in your response or something like that. Then obviously you don't need to attach it because of the wording of that message. But here, obviously I would need to attach before I send, so I would press cancel. So this has just been a quick tutorial on the entire process of using these formatting tools, and I noticed that this has just popped up. I don't know anything about this. Let's check it out. Recheck. It's just rechecking stuff. So it looks like everything's fine. Oh, now it's giving me some options for different languages that wasn't there before. I've never used all this, and I'm sure you'll probably not use it either. So this has been the tutorial, part 4 on email writing skills, with specifically looking at how to format in the Gmail client. So if you have any feedback, if you think there's some other ways of using these formatting tools that I haven't mentioned in the video, or you have any other tips or feedback on this video or series, you can definitely leave your comments below. Thank you so much for your time.